This is the Mad Scientist Memo. The Mad Scientist Memo. Here we go.
Our story begins in the skies of Europe.
Disclaimer: this story is an art of pure fiction. Any persons and characters mentioned in the story, well, most of them, are also a product of our fictitious imagination. Although the story is set within historical context, terms and conditions apply.
So, what she means to say is today on the Mad Scientist Memo, what we're going to be doing is taking a little bit of a walk through the evolution of medicine at one very, very distinct time. You want to introduce what that is?
Drum roll, please. The World War II
World
and
War
how
II.
that helped shape so much of the medicine that we know today and the way it is practiced and
Right.
understanding that we have.
Right.
Yes, continue. You were saying some story.
Yeah, so for the purposes of today, what we're going to do is take one character of our imagination, of course.
Yes.
Who is
Thomas Archer.
Thomas Archer. And through him, we're going to understand a lot of the actual, accurate happenings during the war that actually boosted or gave this huge leverage in the medical field.
And discoveries that happened during that time. As
Right,
well.
of
Yes.
course. So, why don't you take us there?
Our story begins in the skies over Europe, 1943. Meet squadron leader Tommy Archer, a dashing Spitfire pilot with a keen eye and a heart full of courage. Effects for whatever. Continue.
Sound cues. Right.
One fateful afternoon, Tommy's luck ran out. A German Focke-Wulf 190 ambushed his battalion. Tommy's Spitfire took a direct hit. The cockpit exploded. Tommy was injured on his face and left arm. He fought the controls, desperate to keep her in the air, but the bird was dying. Against all odds, Tommy managed to bail out his parachute and it blew just before he hit the English Channel. He was pulled from icy water hours later, barely clinging to life. His left arm was shattered, his face was masked with burns, and his left eye, pierced by shrapnel, was gone.
Right.
What do you think happened next?
So, what do we think happened next, right? So, of course, we've explored this extremely dire circumstance of our infamous Tommy Archer, who's undergone some sort of an aviation attack.
Accident.
Accident, right.
Not accident, attack. Yeah.
Attack. So, what happened in the circumstances of the World War was to understand that, let's first understand what was prioritized before World War. So, here we have the dual nature of antisepsis versus asepsis.
Right. So when Tommy was taken to the hospital, we can imagine this chaotic scene where there is so many people who are bearing the brunt of like injury because of the war going on.
And these are not just small injuries, of
Yeah,
course.
they're
They're
very-
huge, inflicted due to warfare.
Correct.
Right.
And there's so much chaos in the
Yeah.
hospital, and there's this emphasis on keep him clean or keep his wounds clean. Now the concepts that she was referring to of antisepsis versus asepsis is that the understanding of antisepsis, which is the use of chemicals to kill microorganisms on surfaces, was becoming standard. And we used, what did we use? We used substances like carbolic acid. Although they
Yes.
were strong, they did the job of killing microorganisms.
Yeah.
But the war pushed it even further,
Further.
and it's not just about, now it wasn't just about killing microorganisms.
It was preventing any sort of infection in the first place.
What's that called?
Asepsis.
Exactly. So there was a push towards asepsis, and now we could see doctors were, brushing their hands and wearing like what's it called? Those masks
gowns,
and
the
gowns, and they were all
masks.
obviously rudimentary at that stage, but it was something.
Yeah,
It
there
a
was a
start.
huge push of, like you said, a lot of modern principles of asepsis that we ourselves have noticed in our
Correct.
clinical postings and all,
Correct.
the sterilization tactics, the
Exactly.
protecting ourselves. Like you said, the masks, the gloves, the aprons, a lot of them began at these dire times where asepsis was so much more important than antisepsis. Because what happened in these wartime injuries and these wartime accidents, but that the infections that were caused because of these injuries were more often than not way more harmful than the actual injuries that were inflicted upon the person.
Exactly. Now, what happened to Tommy? Let's go back to him.
Right. So where do we see Tommy now? We see Tommy has, of course, just undergone this huge, like you said, this
Accident. And now
accident,
he's shifted to the
and
hospital.
right, and there are burns, and
There
there's a
were-
lot of deformation that we see. So let's say there's some sort of reconstruction that is needed, right?
Correct. So now he was transferred under Sir Archibald McIndoe.
Yes.
He's a pioneer when it comes to plastic surgery. So
Yes.
Tommy was shifted under his care. And Tommy found himself in the midst of a very unique gathering called
The Guinea Pig Club.
a very ironic name, the
Right.
Guinea Pig Club.
So Sir Archibald, of course, had his expertise in this sort of plastic and reconstructive medicine. And what he did is he brought a very different approach to the incidents that were occurring. He understood that there is so much of a social implication to somebody who has to undergo these kind of procedures.
Exactly.
There's a lot
And
of identification problems, a lot of social, societal issues that come up. And he created this psychological safe space by not only completely reinventing the way graft procedures were done before, he brought about so much new innovation to the actual graft procedures, to the actual, tissue cleansing and the tissue exchange procedures.
Exactly.
But he also brought about a huge psychological helping hand to the groups
Through
of
the-
people that were inflicted. Exactly.
through the Guinea Pig Club. So the Guinea Pig Club, everybody was scarred and broken because of this war, and yet there was mutual trust and friendship amongst people who were coping with what they had gone through.
Yeah.
And McIndoe saw beyond just the disfigurement. He saw the man beneath, or the human
The
beneath.
human beneath.
And he understood the need, like Shreya just
Yeah.
impressed upon us, the need to help these individuals gain back what they lost.
Right. And so all of his patients, what they did is they started referring to themselves as the Guinea Pig Club.
Exactly.
And they formed sort of like a society where they
Exactly.
can come reconnect and, go
Be
on
there
that
for
journey
each
together.
other.
Yeah, exactly.
So while Tommy was undergoing his multiple surgeries and just recovering from what had happened to him, there was another hidden medical revolution that was unfolding, born from World War One. Now, nitrogen mustard is very infamous for being used as chemical warfare in World War One, and its effects were horrifying. It was a blistering agent, but during World War II, scientists actually started studying its effects, and they observed that it severely suppressed bone marrow production, particularly WBCs.
Right.
And this is terrifying, right? Imagine I'm
This
a scientist.
is terrifying.
I'm
But
a scientist now for the moment.
Hmm.
It's devastating, of course, but this extreme effect of rapidly dividing cells. What if we could harness that? What if we could target unwantedly, rapidly growing cells?
I urge you all to quote Zera on that sometime in the future. But okay, impressive monologue aside,
Yes.
that is exactly what these scientists realized, right? They saw it destroying all these fast dividing bone marrow cells, and they were like, maybe we can apply the same concept on the fast dividing cancer cells.
Yes. So
Right.
that's how nitrogen mustard ended up becoming the first chemotherapy agent. Isn't that cool?
That is crazy. And of course, this process of giving nitrogen gas as a chemotherapeutic agent did bring about some sort of temporary remission,
Uh-huh.
right? But it was still proof of concept that this was a sustainable path to look into and keep going forward through.
Perfect. In 1942, the first human trials of nitrogen mustard was tried for the treatment of lymphoma.
Right.
And like she said, there was positive outcomes, and we realized that we could use the same theory moving forward.
Right.
Back to Tommy. Tell me what happened to him.
Okay, so back to Tommy, we did hear, of course, coming back to his injuries, he did injure his eye as well.
Yes.
Yeah, if you remember that.
The shrapnel went into his eye, and he had both of his eyes were affected, no?
Right. But there's a very interesting incident that happened during World War. Was a lot of these scientists and people in research noticed that there were these glass or these acrylic materials that were entering these soldiers' eyes due to constant exposure, and nothing happened. no
You
negative
mean no
effects were
infections?
born.
No
Yeah,
infections.
there were no infections, there were no negative effects of being exposed directly to these acrylic pieces. And what did this bring about?
Again, drum roll, please. You'd not guess it. This is how they discovered intraocular lenses.
Yeah,
Like, it was perfect to be used for this, like, purpose.
yeah,
Because you could put it inside your eye. It was made of the material. It was made of a material with the refractive index, and it did not bring about an infection. Perfect.
yeah. What is that material called? It's the
Not the
PMMA, the Perspex material
Okay.
in particular, that is still currently being used.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
In some places, it's still currently being used, right?
For making lenses.
Yeah.
Wow.
For a lot of
To
ocular
think-
procedures.
To think that the discovery of that material dates back to World War II is crazy.
Yeah.
Moving ahead, there's something else also that was happening at the same time, which was the discovery of antibacterial agents like
Right.
sulfonamides and penicillin. And during this time, again, because there was war, there was so much infection, there was a need to maximize the production of these antibiotic agents.
Right, of course. And of course, these sulfur drugs were very widely accepted at that time
Correct.
to be of prevention to these sort of infectious diseases. So what they used to do is when they had open war wounds, they would sprinkle sulfur powder on it.
Really?
Yeah, and this helped in a lot of antiseptic,
Again, same
infectious.
antiseptic. You're trying to prevent the the injuries that could be caused because of the wound getting infected.
Exactly.
Right? Again, with penicillin as well, there was such an urgent need
Oh,
to
penicillin.
Yes, there was a very huge demand to treat battlefield injuries, and that propelled penicillin from a laboratory curiosity to mass produced lifesaver. And it completely transformed battlefield medicine. For Tommy as well, recovering from multiple surgeries, penicillin was a shield protecting him from deadly infections and therefore, improving his chances of survival through this
Right.
tragedy.
Right. And coming to actual the soldiers on the lines, right, actually going out to war. So we do see, even in the current context, it's pretty applicable to say there are a lot of drugs taken for performance enhancing purposes
Correct.
in various matters.
Correct.
And even at that crucial wartime, similar discoveries actually aided in taking off these sort of performance enhancing drugs to keep soldiers more alert and active and on their toes and really improve
their
the
performance.
efficiency.
Because obviously you want to win a war when you're in a war.
Right. So of course the both side, we have the allied side and then the axis.
Yes.
And on the axis we actually have them prescribing these methamphetamine. Why did I say that incorrectly? Oh my god. Methamphetamine.
Okay, methamphetamine, guys.
Methamphetamine.
It's a tongue twister. Don't.
Yeah. Okay.
Methamphetamine.
Methamphetamine. And what this did is it improves alertness and it improves focus by, I told you this, increasing the dopamine and norepinephrine release
So therefore improving your performance.
in the brain. Yeah, exactly. So what it does is it inhibits the reuptake of the dopamine, which is going to give you that, along with euphoria, it's going to give you this hyper focus and this alert with your, sympathetic system all riled up
Yes.
and ready sort of situation. And of
You
course,
go into
there
fight
is-
and flight mode, and now your soldier is optimized. Your soldier is, I don't know,
Yeah.
he's like on a roll.
right, but that is also pretty temporarily because
Okay.
there are a lot of long-term effects of any of these drugs, and this one has a lot of crash out effects and
Oh.
psychosis scene.
Oh no.
Right. And then we have the allied forces, and on their side, they were actually given benzedrine or amphetamine sulfate.
Okay.
Right. So what they did is they took benzedrine inhalers, and this helped them increase their wakefulness or
Okay.
again their state of high alert.
Alertness.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it functions pretty similarly to methamphetamine, but it is a little bit weaker than that.
Okay.
And it, in the long term, does cause like insomnia and tremors
Okay.
and some anxiety and sometimes arrhythmia and things like that.
Oh, so
And
no side
withdrawal
effects.
from these drugs is also a pretty,
Oh no.
pretty dangerous
Stinky.
slope to go to. But
Okay.
such was the situation. Yeah. And I guess we also have one very big advancement that happened was the improvement in blood banking systems.
Okay, tell me about it.
Yeah, so of course, if there is a time of constant war,
There is need,
there
there
is
is bloodshed,
need, there is a lot of bloodshed, there is a need for quick, easy, efficient replacement techniques, right? And
correct.
to have something on hand. And a lot of these hospitalizations and these hospital like places were just temporary tents.
Oh,
of
yeah,
course,
of course.
that were pulled up in any war struck
Exactly.
region. So they really had to make their blood banking system really efficient. So
How did they do that?
they really phoned in on plasma collection.
Okay.
Actually, and we know why plasma is so important, right?
Yeah.
We know the albumin protein in the plasma, it maintains the oncotic
Yeah.
pressure. It's
Of
going to
course,
prevent
it's a
circulatory
component
shock.
of your blood.
Yeah. So Dr. Charles Drew, actually, he was the one who standardized plasma separation
Okay.
and cold storage and transport. And by 1945, it is estimated that the US Army has processed like 13 million units of plasma.
Oh wow, that's out
Yeah.
of this world.
So this was a very, very big leap in the evolution of modern blood transfusions.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
impressed. I guess that's a wrap for our story
That
about
is-
Tommy Archer.
Yeah, so ultimately all these huge leaps in medical
med-
advancement
is what helped Tommy
Tommy
Archer.
pulled through.
Yes, that's his name, isn't it? Tommy
It is
Archer.
Thomas Archer.
Tommy
Wow.
Archer.
Yeah.
I did not forget his name, guys. I remembered it. Yeah.
She might have forgotten it momentarily.
Yes. I cannot
it's
forget
okay.
it. I was so
It's a bit of a tongue twister, Zara. It's okay. But
the
You know-
point of this episode was to impress upon anybody, like impress upon you guys that even though we understand, like, of course war is bad, but this was also a time where the circumstances put them into a place where they could not do anything but innovate and but find solutions to medical problems that they were facing in real time with patients in the hospitals.
right, you know how they say necessity drives invention.
Yeah, it forced them to evolve. It was a time that forced medicine to evolve. And so
It was a time of a lot of turbulence, and there was a lot of unrest and so many things happening that
at
were
the same time,
out of place and
yeah,
not great. But
but a
there
lot
is-
of medicine that we know today can be attributed to that time because of the level of evolution that
Yeah.
happened during that period.
It is of good nature, I think, to credit the fact that it was a good leap for medicine
It was.
despite the trying times.
But despite it being traumatic and very, very heartbreaking. Yeah, so I guess that's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next one.